power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. Here's the truth, my friends. When two people choose silence, the ego starts to shake. Hook? Simple. Silence doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means everything is changing under the surface. Before we dive in, press the like button, hit subscribe, and turn on the bell, because today we're breaking lies and building power. Stay with me. Hey folks, imagine this. Two chess clocks on a table, both ticking, both waiting. No one moves. At first it looks boring, but the pressure grows. The move you don't make becomes the move that changes everything. Or think of a snow globe. You stop shaking it. Suddenly the flakes settle, and you finally see what was inside the whole time. That's what silence does. It clears the water. It shows the shape of the truth. We've been told a big lie, that the loudest person wins, that quick texts, long speeches and dramatic exits prove strength. My friends, that's noise wearing a crown. Real strength is calm. Real strength is control. Real strength is the voice inside that says, don't sell your peace for a moment of attention. Another picture. Your phone is a little slot machine. You pull to refresh, hoping for 3 cherries. Message, reply, validation. Fun for the casino, not for your soul. The ego loves this game because it eats reactions like candy. But silence is like switching the sugar to protein. It's not flashy, but it builds muscle you can trust. And yes, we can have a little fun with it. Picture your ego like a tiny drama director in your head, wearing sunglasses, yelling, and action every time you feel an urge to type a paragraph. Today, we're firing that director. No more ego cinema. We're shooting a documentary called Peace. Here's another truth bomb. Control is not connection. Distance is not power. Reassurance is not love. We chase because the ego is scared of stillness. Stillness feels like a blank screen, but a blank screen is where you write a new story. Folks, silence isn't about pretending you don't care. It's about caring the right way, where your self-respect doesn't have to beg. When both sides go quiet, something invisible begins to move. The person who used distance to feel big suddenly faces their own echo. The person who used to chase starts breathing again. The scoreboard disappears, and what's left is character. Let me give you one more metaphor. Imagine your peace is a house on a hill. If every knock at the door sends you running, you don't own the house. The house owns you. Stoicism hands you the keys. You open when it's right. You close when it's right. You don't explain the floor plan to every stranger who walks up the path. As Epictetus said, no person is free who is not master of himself. That's not coldness. That's alignment. You can be kind and still say nothing. You can be strong and still stay calm. You can love deeply and still refuse to perform pain. So here's the invitation. Stand in the quiet like it's a gym. Each urge you don't obey is a rep. Each message you don't send is a breath. Each minute you stay calm is a deposit in the bank of real power. And yes, we'll laugh at the ego together when it tries to push us into the same old dance. Not today. Today we choose direction over drama, truth over tension, peace over performance. If this is hitting home, drop a comment with the words, I choose my power. Press like, subscribe, and stay with me, because this is where we turn silence into strength and strength into freedom. Number 1. The shift begins. Ego dies in silence. Not when someone leaves, not when someone wins an argument, but when there's nothing left to feed it. That line, my friends, hits like thunder for a reason. Because when they stop talking and you stop chasing, something invisible begins to shake inside both of you. It's not peace yet. It's detox. Imagine 2 mirrors facing each other. At first, they reflect endlessly, each image feeding the next. Then one turns away. The loop breaks. The noise stops. And what's left staring back is truth, the one thing the ego fears most. They think silence is victory, that walking away first means control. That distance equals dominance. But real silence doesn't protect the ego. It exposes it. It's like turning off the stage lights after the performance ends. Suddenly the makeup, the masks, the props, all of it looks fake, and that's where it hits them. The applause they thought was power was just a distraction. And for you, that's when the hard part begins. Because silence, folks, feels heavy at first. It's the gym of the soul. Every second you don't react feels like lifting something impossible. You want to send the message. You want to explain your side. You want to remind them who you are. But deep down, you know, explaining yourself to someone who already decided not to hear you is like shouting into a storm and expecting the wind to take notes. You start questioning yourself. Did they win? Did I lose? Should I break the silence first? That's the ego whispering fear. Remember this, the ego doesn't want connection, it wants control. It panics when the game stops. It's like a gambler at a table when the dealer walks away. It wasn't about the cards, it was about the adrenaline. Silence steals the adrenaline. That's why it feels like a loss. But it's not loss, it's withdrawal from noise. Here's a metaphor that'll sting a bit. They're like a person holding a balloon, convinced it's a planet. The bigger it looks, the more real it feels, until silence pops it. Suddenly, there's no world to rule, no reaction to own. Just air, vanishing. They'll call it boredom, they'll call it space, but what they're really feeling is power leaving their hands, because power can't live in pretense, it needs truth to breathe. And you, my friend, are learning something profound. That peace doesn't mean you don't care, it means you don't beg. That silence doesn't mean you're ignoring, it means you're observing. That distance doesn't mean rejection, it means direction. They might think they're teaching you a lesson by walking away, but life's teaching both of you something deeper. Ego collapses when it runs out of attention to feed on. Still, I get it. It's not easy. The mind screams, do something. The heart replies, wait. The fear says, if you don't reach out, they'll forget you. But here's the truth bomb. People don't forget peace. They remember what it feels like to lose it. You don't need to chase a memory. You are the memory, the calm one, the grounded one, the one who didn't flinch. Let me quote Seneca here. He who is brave is free. And bravery, folks, isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just sitting still while the storm inside you tries to convince you to move. That's what Stoicism looks like when the theory hits real life. You'll feel lonely, yes, but loneliness is often just peace in its early stages. Awkward, quiet, waiting to be understood. Ask yourself, what's really collapsing right now? The connection or the illusion of control? Because most of the time, the bond wasn't breaking, it was revealing its shape. They wanted power through distance, and you wanted peace through clarity. Those two can't coexist. Silence just makes it visible. And when they realize their silence doesn't make you chase, it will shake them. That's when the cracks begin. They'll post things to provoke you. Subtle quotes, nostalgic songs, random stories that look harmless but feel personal. Don't bite. Every reaction you withhold is a brick in your foundation. Every breath you take without reaching out is an act of rebellion against your old self, the version that needed external validation to feel seen. Here's a thought. Silence is like gravity. It pulls everything fake out of orbit. The real stays, the rest drifts. That's why it's hard, because you're not losing them, you're losing your dependence on them. The ego doesn't die quietly. It protests, it's a bargain, it panics, but then it falls silent too. That's the collapse, the moment you realize you're not waiting anymore, you're growing. So, when the fear hits, remember this. Silence isn't your punishment, it's your purification. You're not failing, you're shedding, you're not being ignored, you're being refined. Every day you hold your calm, something sacred strengthens inside you, the kind of power that doesn't need an audience. My friends, this is your training ground. Don't measure silence in hours or days. Measure it in growth. Each second is sculpting a version of you that's harder to shake, harder to manipulate, harder to break. Because while they're still trying to read the silence like it's a game, you've already turned it into discipline. You don't have to prove your strength. They'll feel it when their old tactics stop working. You don't have to announce your peace. It radiates when you stop defending yourself. You don't have to chase closure. You are closure. So write it down in the comments right now. Show them, show yourself, show the world. I choose calm. I choose clarity. I choose control. And stay with me, because what's coming next will take this silence to another level, the moment when the balance truly shifts, and the one who used distance for power finally feels its weight. Number 2, the ego's oxygen. Every reaction is a transaction. Every word you spend is a piece of power you'll never get back. Let that sit for a second, my friends, because this right here, it's the part most people never master. When both sides go quiet, ego starts gasping for air. It's addicted to movement, addicted to noise. It can't survive without response. Picture a candle trapped in a glass jar. The flame burns bright for a moment, feeding on the little oxygen it has left. But the longer you leave it untouched, the weaker it flickers, until it dies out completely. That's what happens to the ego in silence. It suffocates, not because someone hurt it, but because no one's feeding it anymore. They don't realize it yet, but silence starves them. The distance they thought was dominance begins to feel like drought. Control feels powerful until there's no reaction to control. It's like a fisherman casting a line into still water and realizing the bait's gone unnoticed. The frustration grows, and soon enough, their pride starts to tremble under its own weight. Meanwhile, you're over there feeling the same pressure, different shape, same burn. The fear creeps in. What if they never reach out? What if I'm forgotten? What if silence means they've moved on? That's not your intuition talking. That's the ego bargaining for attention. It'll throw every what if it can find just to get you to move. But here's where the stoic in you begins to rise. You realize that breaking silence just to calm your nerves is like opening an oven too early because you're impatient. It ruins the growth process. Folks, think of reaction as currency. Every time you send a message to prove you don't care, you're paying the very system that undervalued you. Every explanation you give to someone who's not listening is like pouring water into a broken glass. It doesn't quench, it just drains. The lie we were taught? That being silent means you've lost. The truth? Silence is the luxury of those who've outgrown begging for clarity. They too start to feel the burn. The person who once used emotional distance as armor starts noticing that their weapon doesn't work anymore. They were used to your quick replies, your anxious energy, your need to be seen. Now there's nothing to push against. The wall they built for control has turned into their own cage. You've flipped the script without saying a word. But let's not romanticize it. It's not easy for you either. The ego hates stillness. It shakes like a body craving its fix. You'll feel the itch to text, to just check in, to prove you're not bitter. But the truth is, every time you resist that impulse, you're building a muscle they can't see. A kind of self-control that outlasts charm, good looks, or timing. You're not being cold, you're being clear. Let's break another lie here. Silence isn't avoidance, it's awareness. Avoidance hides from truth. Awareness watches it unfold. You're not ignoring them. You're observing reality without distortion. You're learning who actually shows up when you stop carrying both sides of the conversation. That's emotional intelligence in motion. Now imagine this, two radio stations broadcasting on different frequencies. They can't hear each other because they're not tuned the same. That's what silence reveals. You start realizing how much of the connection was just static. Without the noise, you finally hear the difference between harmony and habit. It's uncomfortable, but it's honest. And honesty, my friends, is terrifying for the ego, because ego doesn't want truth. It wants control of the story. It wants to be right. It wants to be missed. It wants validation disguised as closure. But silence gives it none of that. That's why it hurts so much. It's not the loss of the person that burns. It's the loss of the illusion that you could control how they saw you. Remember this line. Write it somewhere. Peace begins the moment you stop needing someone else to see your worth. The ego will fight you on this. It will whisper, "But what if they never understand me?" And you'll whisper back, "That's no longer my job. That's liberation." They start feeling it too. The same silence they used as protection starts echoing back. Their phone stays quiet. Their name doesn't pop up in your notifications anymore. They wonder why you haven't cracked, why you haven't sent that long emotional message that used to reset their confidence. The ego doesn't collapse loudly. It collapses in confusion. It looks for the old reactions like a ghost searching for its house. Meanwhile, you're learning something they never did. That discipline is freedom. You start noticing you can breathe again. The anxiety fades. The energy you used to spend decoding texts now fuels your growth. The silence that once felt like punishment now feels like peace. You're no longer trapped in the constant checking, proving, performing. You've stepped out of the feedback loop, and that's when the ego truly starves. It's a strange kind of satisfaction, isn't it? Not revenge, just quiet equilibrium. You're not above them, but you're beyond the game. You realize the one who controls their emotions controls the entire dynamic. That's what Marcus Aurelius meant when he said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you'll find strength. So, if you're in that silence right now, and your ego is screaming for response, let it scream. Let it tire itself out. Let the noise burn itself into stillness. That's where growth begins. Because silence isn't the end of connection, it's the beginning of truth. Type this below to remind your mind, show yourself, show the world around. I control my reactions. I protect my peace. I choose silence as power. And stay with me, because what comes next will take you even deeper, the moment when the silence stops being shared and starts becoming yours alone. And that's where real transformation begins. Number 3, control versus connection. Ego doesn't want love, it wants leverage. That line hits hard, my friends, because it tears down the illusion that most people live under. They confuse control with connection and manipulation with meaning. They think distance equals power and silence equals dominance. But let's be real. Control isn't connection, it's fear in disguise. It's the ego's desperate attempt to avoid being seen without its armor. Imagine two people standing in the middle of a storm. One is building a wall to stay dry, and the other is holding out their hand, hoping to meet halfway. But the storm doesn't stop for either. It just reveals what both are made of. Control builds walls, connection builds bridges, and silence. It's the wind that tests which one holds. They, the ones who hide behind detachment, tell themselves they're protecting their peace. I'm fine. I just need space. I'm not ready to talk. But behind those words lives fear. The fear of being vulnerable. The fear of losing control. They wear silence like armor. But even armor rusts in the rain. And you? You're learning to stop chasing the person who calls distance discipline. You're learning the difference between peace and avoidance. Here's the uncomfortable truth. When both of you go silent, only one of you finds peace. The other finds panic. One side sits with the stillness and grows. The other uses silence as a weapon until it starts cutting their own hand. That's the irony of control. It feels powerful until it becomes isolating. Think about it like this. Control is like holding water in a closed fist. You think you're keeping it safe, but the tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips through your fingers. Real connection flows. It doesn't need to be gripped, it needs to be trusted. And the ego hates that. It can't trust what it can't dominate. The lie we've been sold is that vulnerability is weakness, that being open means being foolish, but vulnerability is how truth breathes. Stoicism isn't about hiding feelings, it's about mastering them. It's not about being cold, it's about being clear. You can love someone and still choose silence when noise no longer nourishes you. You can care deeply and still walk away when connection becomes control. You see, folks, the ego wants to manage emotions like a business. It wants profit, attention, reaction, validation. But connection doesn't trade, it shares. Control says, I'll give when you give. Connection says, I'll show up even when it's uncomfortable. Silence tests which one you've been living in. They'll try to convince themselves that pulling back first means winning, that your calm means you've given up. But the truth is, the moment you stop chasing, you stop negotiating your worth. That's not giving up, that's growing up. The ego screams, make them see your value, but peace whispers, let your absence do it. Let's bring it closer to home. You ever been on a roller coaster? That climb, that suspense before the drop. It's thrilling, right? But it's also exhausting. That's what emotional chasing feels like. You mistake adrenaline for affection. You call chaos chemistry. But silence, real silence, is like finally stepping off the ride. Your body's still shaking, but your soul is starting to breathe again. That's control, not over them, but over you. And that's what Stoicism teaches. Control yourself, not others. If they withdraw, let them. If they play distance, match it with stillness, not spite. Remember Marcus Aurelius's words, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. You don't have to prove that you're over it. You just have to stop performing pain. The fear of silence runs deep because it exposes the truth about control. When there's no response, the ego starts to panic. It says, why aren't they fighting for me? But healthy love doesn't need an argument to exist. It doesn't need tension to feel alive. Silence reveals whether they were connected to you or just addicted to your attention. Let me tell you, my friends, control feels powerful until you're the only one left in the room with it. That's when it turns from weapon to weight. It doesn't protect you, it isolates you. And while they sit in that quiet, replaying what they thought was a win, something begins to shift. That silence they used to control you starts to control them. You, on the other hand, are learning to separate silence from submission. You're not being quiet to punish. You're being quiet to preserve. You're no longer seeking connection through chaos. You're finding it through calm. You don't chase energy that confuses attention with affection. You've outgrown needing to be understood by those committed to misunderstanding you. This stage isn't easy. You'll question everything. What if they never come back? What if they forget me? But here's the reality. People don't forget peace, they crave it. They may distract themselves, but the calm you showed, that lingers longer than any argument ever could. So, when the silence stretches and the doubt whispers, you're losing them, answer back, I'm finding me. That's the shift. That's when silence stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like freedom. That's when control collapses and connection, real connection, finally breathes. Remember, my friends, you don't have to chase what's meant to stay. You just have to stop interrupting what's trying to leave. Because if the silence is mutual, only one of you is truly at peace, and that's the one who doesn't need to fill it with noise. Write this down below. Show them, show yourself, show the world. I choose peace over panic. I choose truth over control. I choose silence over ego. And stay with me, because what's coming next will reveal what silence does to the mind that once thought control was strength. The moment the mirror turns and the ego begins to face itself. Number 4. The mirror effect. The world is a mirror, reflecting back what you are, not what you wish to see. That quote, my friends, is a gut punch for anyone who's been through silence. Because when two people stop talking, the silence doesn't stay empty. It starts echoing. It turns into a mirror, and mirrors don't lie. They reflect the truth both sides were trying to avoid. You can't hide from silence. It has a way of showing you everything you refused to see when the noise was still there. Imagine this: two mirrors facing each other. They used to reflect movement, emotion, reaction. Now they're still. No feedback, no validation, just reflection, raw, unfiltered, uncomfortable. Silence does that. It strips away the performance, the stories, the justifications, and what's left is who you really are when nobody is clapping. It's not punishment, it's revelation. They thought they could control the silence, use it as a weapon, a strategy, a way to make you chase. But silence is loyal to truth. It doesn't take sides. The same silence that protects your peace exposes their pride. It shows them how much of their power depended on your reaction. Without it, their control feels hollow. For you, the mirror feels brutal at first. You start seeing every habit that once kept you stuck, the over-explaining, the fear of being misunderstood, the need to prove your value. It's like watching highlight reels of your own emotional dependency. You see how often you confused connection with control and love with attention. It's uncomfortable, but that discomfort is medicine. Because clarity doesn't come through comfort, it comes through confrontation. The ego hates mirrors. It wants applause, not honesty. It doesn't want to be seen. It wants to be admired. But silence removes the audience. Suddenly, there's no one left to perform for. That's when the breakdown begins. They look into that same mirror and start to see the truth behind their own detachment. The avoidance, the manipulation, the emotional shortcuts they use to call independence. All of it starts cracking under reflection. Silence is like a spiritual X-ray. It reveals fractures no words could hide. Maybe they see how often they use distance to feel superior. Maybe they realize the satisfaction they got from your pain was never power. It was proof of their emptiness. And that truth, my friends, hits harder than any breakup, because you can escape a person, but you can't escape your own reflection. And yes, you start to rise in that same stillness. You begin noticing patterns you once ignored. The times you laughed when you wanted to cry. The times you said, "It's fine," when it wasn't. The moments you settled for attention when what you wanted was effort. Silence turns all that noise into awareness. It doesn't break you, it wakes you. Let's be real, though. The mirror isn't kind at first. It shows you how much of your identity was built around being chosen, being validated, being enough for someone else. That realization stings, but it also liberates. Because once you see that your peace doesn't depend on anyone's presence, you stop trading it for temporary comfort. Think of it like cleaning a dirty window. At first, it gets messier. The dust spreads, the smudges smear. But when you keep wiping, the world outside becomes clear. That's what silence does. It looks messy while it's working. It's not chaos. It's clarity and progress. They're not immune to it either. On their side, the same silence that gave them comfort starts feeling like confinement. They scroll through your old messages. They hover over your name. They play songs that once meant something, pretending they don't. Because silence, for them, used to mean control. Now it means consequence. The ego doesn't collapse with noise. It collapses in the quiet moments when nobody reacts. Here's the paradox. The one who used silence as power begins to feel powerless in it, and the one who used to fear silence begins to feel free inside it. That's the transfer. That's the shift the mirror reveals. Because silence doesn't just expose, it transforms. You start walking differently, thinking differently. You stop negotiating for peace. You stop rehearsing old conversations in your head. The same quiet that once made you anxious now becomes your sanctuary. You begin to realize that peace isn't found in answers. It's found in the absence of questions that never led anywhere. They, on the other hand, begin to sense the distance differently. It's no longer an advantage, it's a void. They try to fill it with distractions, new faces, social posts, subtle provocations. But the mirror keeps showing them the same thing. Your absence isn't punishment, it's proof that their power was never real. And that realization cuts deep, because when silence mirrors truth, there's no escape. You can scroll past it, drink through it, laugh over it, but it always returns. It lingers, it humbles, it teaches. That's the beauty of it. It's not revenge, it's revelation. The kind that changes people, whether they admit it or not. You're no longer trying to win the silence. You're mastering it. You're not reacting. You're reflecting. You're not explaining. You're evolving. Every time you resist the urge to break the quiet, you remind the universe that you've learned the lesson, that you've outgrown the game. So when the silence starts to feel heavy, remember, it's not emptiness, it's exposure. It's not loss. It's light. The mirror isn't mocking you, it's molding you. It's shaping the version of you that doesn't need attention to feel alive or control to feel safe. Because at the end of the day, silence doesn't punish, it purifies. And when you come out of it, you won't be the same. You'll be clearer, calmer, stronger. And that's the reflection that will follow them forever. Type this in the comments. Show them, show yourself, show the world. I see myself clearly. I rise from silence. I choose truth over illusion. And stay with me, because what's coming next dives even deeper into the moment when the silence stops being a reflection and starts becoming your power, when you stop fearing the mirror and start mastering it. Number 5. The tests and traps. Ego never surrenders quietly. It tests you one last time before it breaks. That, my friends, is the moment we're stepping into now. The tests begin. The mind starts whispering. The silence, once your weapon, starts turning into temptation. You feel the itch to reach out, to prove you've moved on, to remind them you still exist. But hear me clearly, the ego is sneaky. It disguises old wounds as just checking in. It calls weakness closure. It sells fear as curiosity. This is not them testing you. It's life testing your discipline. You'll notice it starts small, a random like on your old post, a half-hearted emoji reaction to a story, a subtle hey that means nothing and everything at the same time. They might even post something that feels too perfectly timed to be coincidence. But you know what it is? It's bait. It's the ego fishing for reaction, trying to see if it still owns real estate in your mind. And it's not just them. Your own thoughts will try to play games with you. You'll start creating stories. Maybe they've changed. Maybe they miss me. Maybe this silence has gone on long enough. That's not your intuition. That's your fear dressed as logic. The ego wants you to flinch first, because every reaction, every reply, every emotional slip-up feeds the very dynamic you escaped. Let's break this illusion together. Tests like these don't happen because they miss you. They happen because they miss control. They're not seeking connection. They're seeking confirmation that they still matter. Silence to them is unbearable because it flips the script. It forces them to feel what they once made you feel, uncertainty. And uncertainty to an ego feels like death. But let's not pretend it's easy, my friends. It takes everything in you to resist that urge, to not reply, not defend, not engage. It's like standing at the edge of a cliff while your mind screams, jump. Because reaction feels familiar. Familiar feels safe, but safe doesn't mean peaceful. It just means predictable. Stoicism teaches you to choose peace over pattern, and this is where that lesson becomes real. Imagine your silence as a fortress. Every time you respond to bait, you're leaving the gate open. Every time you explain yourself to someone who already knows what they did, you're letting chaos back in. Guard that gate. Protect your energy like gold. You're not ignoring them, you're protecting yourself. There's a difference between being cold and being conscious. They, on the other side, will notice the difference. They'll sense that something's shifted, that your silence doesn't carry pain anymore. It carries power, and that unnerves them. They'll test the walls to see if you still react the same way. Don't. Your consistency is your revenge. Your composure is your closure. Here's a truth that breaks people. When you stop explaining, they lose control of the narrative. And when they lose the narrative, they start creating new ones. Don't fall for the rewrite. You'll hear whispers. You never cared. You moved on fast. You're cold now. But these are not insults. These are confessions. They're telling you that your silence is louder than their stories. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine being a lighthouse. Ships, people, come and go. Some look for direction, some just pass by. But your job isn't to chase them into the storm. Your job is to stand tall, keep shining, and let those lost in their chaos find their own way back, or not at all. That's stoic love, not attachment, not pride, just awareness. Every test they throw your way is an opportunity for mastery. Every urge you resist is another step towards sovereignty. Remember Epictetus's words, "No one is free who is not master of himself." Freedom doesn't come from walking away. It comes from staying gone when chaos calls your name. And yes, you'll feel the pull. Late at night, when the silence gets heavy, the brain will start creating excuses. Maybe it's just kindness to respond. Maybe I can handle it now. But no, kindness that costs your peace is just self-betrayal dressed as virtue. You've already learned that the ego doesn't need one more message. It needs discipline. So what do you do when the test comes? You smile inwardly. You acknowledge the temptation, and then you do nothing. You stay still. Because sometimes power looks like patience. Sometimes strength looks like staying seated when your old self would have run. Silence isn't weakness. It's proof that you've finally understood the game, and you're no longer playing for validation, you're playing for peace. The moment you stop reacting, you shift from character to author. You're not in their story anymore, they're stuck in yours, rereading the last chapter, trying to figure out where they lost control. And when you hold that silence long enough, something magical happens. Their tests stop looking like challenges and start looking like lessons. You realize you don't have to win. You already did, by not losing yourself this time. That's the real victory. So when the next message drops, when the next post feels too coincidental, when the temptation hits like a wave, breathe, smile. Let the silence speak. Let it echo through their pride until it shakes the illusions they built. Because your stillness is no longer survival, it's sovereignty. Drop this below and let it be your reminder every time the tests come. I don't chase. I don't react. I rise. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world. Because what's coming next is the real turning point, where silence stops testing you and starts transforming you. Number 7. The power transfer. Silence doesn't take power from people. It returns it to the one who deserves it most. This is the moment, my friends, where everything you've endured finally begins to show its purpose. The silence you once feared now stands beside you like an ally. The same quiet that used to make you anxious now guards your peace like a loyal soldier. This is where the power transfers, not in chaos, not in revenge, but in calm. You don't announce this shift. You don't post about it. You just become it. The same you who once waited by the phone now walks past it without flinching. The same heart that once begged for clarity now beats in rhythm with peace. You've stepped into a state most people never reach, the state where your energy no longer leaks through reaction. That's power, that's presence. Picture this, two magnets that once pulled toward each other with intense force. Now one has flipped polarity. The attraction is gone, not because the connection disappeared, but because the energy transformed. You didn't lose them. You outgrew the frequency that kept you stuck. That's what silence does. It doesn't destroy connections. It filters them. It separates what's genuine from what's performative. They start to feel it first. That creeping unease, the tension that silence brings when it's no longer a tactic but a truth. They check your profile, scroll through your posts, wonder why you're not chasing anymore. The silence they once used to control you is now haunting them. And the irony? You didn't have to do a thing. You didn't manipulate, provoke, or seek revenge. You simply stopped reacting, and in doing so, you shifted the balance completely. Because silence, when mastered, is not emptiness, it's authority. The same absence that once hurt them now humbles them. The same restraint that once made you doubt yourself now defines you. You've become what they never expected, a person who doesn't need to prove, perform, or persuade. You don't chase closure anymore. You embody it. Think of your silence like gravity. Everything unstable falls away. Everything real stays orbiting. You've stopped moving toward people who only meet you halfway, and now everything aligned with your peace naturally moves toward you. That's not arrogance. It's alignment. That's the quiet kind of confidence that doesn't seek attention because it is attention. Let's be real, though. The ego will still whisper from time to time. It'll tempt you with thoughts like, maybe I should remind them what they lost, or maybe I should post something just to show I'm fine. But my friends, that's the old version of you speaking, the one who believed being seen was the same as being valued. You don't need to prove anything anymore. Peace doesn't need an audience. They're realizing that now, too. Every unanswered message, every ignored story, every moment your name doesn't appear in their notifications, it starts to sting. They thought silence would make them feel powerful. Instead, it makes them feel small. They thought distance would make them mysterious. Instead, it makes them forgettable. Silence has turned the game inside out. And you're no longer waiting for their next move. You've stopped playing altogether. You've replaced obsession with observation, reaction with reflection, chasing with choosing. You've learned what most never do, that power isn't taken, it's reclaimed. The day you stopped explaining yourself was the day your value started speaking for itself. Here's the beauty of it. This version of you doesn't seek revenge because peace is the revenge. You don't want them to hurt, you just want them to see. And they will. Not through guilt, but through contrast. Through the silence that shows them what your energy really was. Through the calm that reveals how much chaos they once brought. The transfer is invisible, but undeniable. You'll feel it in your body first, in your breathing, in your sleep, in your focus. You'll start walking lighter. The tension that once lived in your chest begins to dissolve. You realize you're no longer waiting for anyone to apologize, to return, to fix what they broke. You've taken the power that once lived in their hands and placed it back where it always belonged, in yours. Seneca once said, "He who conquers himself is the mightiest warrior." And that's exactly who you've become, not a fighter in chaos, but a master in calm. You've learned to win without conflict, to speak without words, to let your absence do what no argument ever could. Because here's the truth. Silence doesn't punish, it purifies. It doesn't break people, it reveals them. The one who depended on your reaction will crumble under the weight of your stillness. The one who once made you question your worth will now question theirs. That's the full circle moment. The energy you once gave freely is now sacred, selective, powerful. So, what happens next? Life starts reflecting your new vibration. Better people, deeper peace, higher purpose. You stop chasing love and start attracting alignment. You stop needing validation and start radiating confidence. The silence that once felt lonely now feels holy. You're not waiting anymore. You're walking forward. You've mastered what few ever do. You've learned that silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's not retreat, it's realignment. It's not emptiness, it's evolution. The person who once struggled to stay quiet now understands that not every action needs an audience and not every ending needs noise. So here's your moment of declaration. If this spoke to something deep inside you, if you've felt that shift and seen that mirror, let this be your statement to the world. I reclaim my power. I protect my peace. I move in silence. Type it in the comments below. Show them, show yourself, show the world that your peace is your priority. And if this message resonated with you, hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who's still fighting battles with words that silence could win. Because peace is contagious, and the world needs more of it. Stay calm, stay grounded, stay powerful, because silence isn't the end, my friends. It's the beginning of mastery.